I'm Park Howell, and welcome to the Business of Story.
I thought it was just a stupid picture of a pig in the ocean. But after hearing that story, I had to have it. Now I wasn't just buying a picture. I was buying a story. Story literally made the picture worth more money to me.
That's what businesses are about. People buy brands. People buy stories much more than anything else.
I work with a lot of big enterprise companies, but let's just say I always tell folks, drop the PowerPoint, close your laptops, start with your story.
If you want people to get engaged and you want people to act, you have to tell them an emotionally powerful story. That's with great characters, it's with uncertain outcomes, and it's with high stakes and drama.
All business strategy is a story.
Hello and welcome back to Business of Story. I'm Park Howell, and I am so happy you're here with me today. Today we are investigating how you can use story marketing to turn a commodity into commotion. And by commotion, I mean elevating a fairly banal item, like, say, socks, into a meaningful and sought-after experience, all through the brand stories you share. I know, it sounds crazy, but socks are a $6 billion global industry. And imagine the market share you might carve out simply by disrupting the norm with story. Today, we're going to meet two people who have done exactly that through their plucky 5-year-old company, Sauk Club. That's right. I am a proud Sauk Club member. The company was born in 2012 as a small side project that has now become one of the premier sock subscription services in the market. They send quality American-made socks out to subscribers around the world once a month. And every month, Sauk Club designs and releases a new, never-before-seen sock, and they tell the story of how it came to be in a personalized letter that accompanies each pair. Joining us today is Sauk Club co-founder Noah Lee and Melissa Huisman, the company's creative brand manager, who has spent the past 15 months bringing the brand voice to life through creative marketing and storytelling. So, how can you use story marketing to turn a basic commodity into a meaningful experience, literally from the ground up? Let's find out.
Sure. Sauk Club was born in a backyard game. We play a lot. And I met my business partner through a couple of friends, and he was kind of a serial entrepreneur, and I worked in finance. And he kept starting these businesses and generating some revenue, and then kept having issues for various reasons, like most startups do. And I said, one of the things I do professionally is execute problems. And I think it would be really fun to be part of something like that. So next time you have an idea, let me know. And Sauk Club was basically an idea that Dane came up with after he read a Forbes article about a company called Black Sox. And Black Sox had 25,000 subscribers, and they were sending out basic black Italian dress socks. We thought it was a good revenue model, and we thought it was an interesting way to get socks, but we thought the socks themselves were not interesting at all. And so if we were going to do this, we would do it through humor, and we would do it through colorful socks. And so Dane, go ahead.
Was the backyard game beer pong then? Is that where the humor came from? Or what was the backyard game?
No, it was cornhole.
Okay.
And Dane played Ultimate Frisbee, so a lot of games centered around a Frisbee. But no, we were just really good friends who kind of shot ideas around and thought, here's an idea that we could run with. So we started by just, Dane was a developer, and it was in his back pocket to develop a site. And, I didn't really take him seriously at first, but then he built the site and said, hey, look, I think this is good. And people started emailing us saying, is this live? Does this work? And that was the market validation. And so at that point, we just started ordering socks from other companies. And I still remember, the first month, we didn't even know what the packaging was going to look like or exactly how we were going to do it. But that was my responsibility. My responsibility was to figure out how to ship the socks and do that. So we went live in May of 2012. I think we had 30 people the first month.
But what was its initial appeal? I mean, you weren't selling just black Italian dress socks. What was it that you guys had out there that caught some interest?
I don't know the exact answer to that. I know that Dane published it on Hacker News, and it was really just an idea that you could get colorful socks this way. And we talked about it being a surprise for yourself and just something different. And so at that point, this was, I don't know, 2012. Socks have come a long way in the last 5 years as being pretty popular. And I think, Happy Socks had just come out. Another company called Richer Rapport was making colorful socks. They weren't as popular as they were today. So when you said, here's this service as a young male, at the same time, Dollar Shave Club is launching and Harry's is launching, and these ideas that, you can shop just by ordering online and make it a surprise. I think that was all happening at the same time. And just some early adopters were willing to jump in and say, this sounds fun. And the original value proposition was we were going to go source the best socks for you.
Meaning best socks for you, like what? Like what you like to look at, feel, or how?
I think look and be within that relatively affordable price point of $12. I think we started at $11 a month. So, that's essentially, if you go to Nordstrom or some other store and they charge you $15, we were going out and giving you that same quality sock for $12 and delivering it. So we were basically pooling the subscribers together and saying, we're going to go get you a good deal on a colorful sock that we think you'd like.
So when did the story marketing part of it come into play?
The story marketing really evolved over a little bit of time. The development of the packaging was really something that came out of me trying to figure out, I didn't want to just send the sock. We went and bought the sock from another brand, and if we just put it in an envelope, I didn't really think there was much there. I thought that it made more sense to present it like you want to be excited about getting this every month. And I didn't quite know how to do that. But then a family friend sent me a card, and that card had a wax seal on it. And I was like, this letter meant a lot to me. It's different than the letters I get every day. How can I do that for this sock? Because it's not like I'm the only person selling this sock. So then I kind of had a few too many drinks, and there was a Maker's Mark bottle, and I saw the wax seal again. I said, this makes sense. Why don't I wrap these socks in a wax seal? And then Dana and I were debating, and he basically said, you know what we should do? We need to make it so that the person can send a note. And so he made it very simple and included a piece of paper that said, here's a message you can put in there. And the reason we chose the first sock was this. And so over time, we started noticing the feedback and the way that people reacted to that value proposition. And so it was not an immediate thing where we said, the story is the most popular thing here. We were really saying, well, how do we pick the best sock? How do we deliver this efficiently? We were probably thinking it more like engineers. But over time, it became very apparent that the message was super important. And I can remember the very first time I knew how powerful that was is when I worked on a trading floor. And so the first couple of months, I hand delivered the packages, and I got to see the physical reactions to people and how they responded to opening that package.
And by trading floor, you mean like Wall Street? Or?
Like Wall Street trading floor, but in Howdy, Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And so this bunch on that floor is a pretty serious bunch. They wear suits and ties. They're, business oriented all the time. And we're delivering this really something that's different, and creating something that we thought would be more of like what we wanted as millennials in their mid-20s, saying, I don't want to go buy socks, I want them delivered to me. But in hand delivering those and putting that message in there, I started realizing that when I delivered it, the first thing people did is not look at the socks. They opened it up and they wanted to read this funny letter that we were writing every month. And like, why did we choose this sock? And what were they getting? Who made it? And that was the moment where you decided this isn't about socks anymore. This is an experience. This is, if I'm buying it for the trader on the other side of the room, I'm going to send him the funniest joke I can. And it's more like a way for friends to communicate. And over the course of the last 4 years, we've been doing that and meeting subscribers and meeting people. This is a gift experience, and it's an experience in the way that people communicate and share things with each other. And socks are just a really fun way to do that. And so the experience itself has grown from that. And it definitely was not laid out And I did not know that, and Dane didn't know that when we started this process.
Well, a catchphrase just caught me as you were saying that. You essentially, by doing this and focusing on the message and the experience, you turned a commodity into a commotion. I mean, and you're selling the commotion. That's what people want to experience when it shows up.
Absolutely. And what was even more powerful to me is that I could go to the trading floor and I could see that. And then I could talk to my 65-year-old dad, and he was that excited. And then I could talk to my wife's best friend who bought it. And all of those individuals came from different walks of life and different experiences, but they were all excited about this one particular experience. And it brought that out, and that was what was powerful to me. And it said, this is scalable, and this is something that is going to be really exciting. I recently had an experience with a really close friend that I've known for, I don't know, almost 8 or 9 years. And he's been to business school, and he's kind of he's just one of my friends that thinks literally. And his fiance bought him a subscription for this Christmas. And he's been like, I knew you were selling socks this whole time. I just didn't, I didn't get it. But he's like, I got it. And I opened this package, and what you're doing is amazing. And I just never got it. 8 years you've been blabbing about socks, and now I get it. And that to me is the culmination of telling that experience story, because you don't get it until you receive the whole thing, and it's hard to articulate. Even if you put it in a video, it's not there. It has meaning when someone you care about provides it to you and provides that message with the story we're telling.
Mm-hmm. So, Melissa, you're there with Noah, and you are now in charge of doing the storytelling for Sauk Club. Tell us a little bit about what attracted you to the company, and how are you managing this experience now through your stories?
Definitely. Great question. So when I came into Sauk Club, it was about 1.5 years ago. It was evident to me in chatting with Noah and Dane that they were at a real transition point. And I came into the table and I saw that what they had built was really powerful. And I think all the things that Noah is saying, I could recognize in the brand. And I saw that it was a growing company, a growing brand, and there was a lot of opportunity, but also definitely still some rough edges. And so my background, I come from a formal education background of marketing and advertising, creative direction, storytelling. And so I was coming at it from kind of a academic lens, looking at this startup, this really quirky, cool brand that clearly had built some traction. And I was kind of coming to the table saying, wow, you've got something really awesome here. And I think with a little bit of intentionality and just a little more focus and energy, we can really shine this thing and make it even better than it already is. And so, when I stepped in, I think the challenge was we had a personality. Sauk Club had a personality that was very evident. And if you spent, a week with the company or a week with the team, that came through really clearly. And so I knew within my first week of working at Sauk Club, okay, this clearly, we have a brand personality here. It has come to life over the past few years of this brand being built, but the stories aren't really being shared from the internal to the external. And, we have these letters, we have these assets that we've built into our brand experience, but how can we even elevate that more and then start telling our story more clearly and really develop that personality character and share it with the world? And so that was one of my big challenges joining the team, was how to kind of bring together my experience in the academic world and in theory, and then bring that into a real life situation with this brand that, is up and coming, growing quickly, and has so much potential to continue pushing the envelope on storytelling. And so really that's been what I've been working on. And a few ways we've done that has just been to refine the voice. And so I kind of have had the challenge of taking, okay, all of our team members have, different personalities, but we really are a family. And so the way that our brand communicates is kind of a conglomerate of our whole team and the way that we all are. And that's something that we're really proud of. We don't like to feel corporate or stuffy. We definitely like our quirkiness, our kind of Austin vibe. We like that to come through. And so a lot of that happened through social media, and it's something that's been happening and being refined over the last 1.5 years. We've had different challenges in messaging, whether it's attending a trade show or helping to craft a story for a publicity piece, or writing speaker bios, or writing copy for an email marketing campaign. As we've all worked together to do that, the story has become more and more refined. And I think we've grown more into our identity as a brand.
And when did your stories take on the shape that they are now, where you have this inspiration behind the sock design, like the Amelia for Amelia Earhart, and then you've got the story that plays that out? Has that been around for a while, or is that relatively new?
It's been a transformation. When we first started, we were purchasing socks from other brands. So we would go buy those and then say, why did we choose that brand and why did we choose that product? As we grew as a company and we went further down the supply chain and said, we're going to start building our own brand and producing our own products, and then started to get into, one of the things that excites me the most is the production of our product. And so they kind of took a direction of, we chose combed cotton with this staple, and then into, once we kind of figured out the exact sock we were going to make and kind of the chassis that was going to go along with that, then the design started taking a mind of their own. And as the design team has grown and as talented individuals like Melissa have joined the team, each one of them has taken an influence to that process. So it has definitely evolved from something based on the product to something based on the story, and reinforcing this experience that the customer is happening and what we're providing. So, I would say the modern form of the letter and that has probably been around for about 2.5 years. Is probably a good estimate.
And then what comes first, the inspiration for the design of the sock or the story for the sock that then the design tries to represent?
I think that's probably a really tough question, to be honest. I think different members of the team would tell you a different answer on that. But, I was trying to figure out how to share this yesterday. I was one of the, when you kind of lean back and have a thought to yourself about how incredible some of the little things you do. I was, again, thinking about my friend saying, I didn't get it till you did it. Yesterday, I was looking back and we have at least 100 sock designs that we're currently working on to decide what's going to be the next 2 socks. And how do we share that with our members or anyone in the public that would be interested to see how much it takes to make one of these? And so the stories that come from them develop from the design and from the story themselves, because we might take something that everyone gets excited about and then say, what's going to be the story behind it? And then we alter the design. So I'm not sure that there's just a binary way it happens. It's really an iterative process. And the designs that came out last month probably started their development last summer.
Gotcha. So, Melissa, will you inherit a design and then try to figure out how to wrap a story into that?
I think it is kind of a which came first, chicken or the egg question. In some ways, yes, but also sometimes even in the design process, these designs take on a story of their own. Something that we do is we'll review designs and we'll sit around as a team and kind of flip through decks of designs. And sometimes even in that design review process, socks will get nicknames because of how they look. We'll say, oh, that's the 80s looking sock, or, whatever. The name kind of comes out. And so it'll take on this persona because of how the design looks. So sometimes that happens and then it gets edited or changed a little bit. And then other times we do have a final design and we say, hey, we think this is really cool. This sock is beautiful and it's going to look really great on everyone's feet and it's going to knit out well. And, these other considerations technically that we think about. And so we land on a design and then we say, okay, what does this bring to mind? Or what was part of the process of going through this? Where have we been as a company? So I think it kind of depends on each sock design. And that's something that we're currently actually looking at how to address that. Is it something that we really do want to bring a story theme to the front and then design around that? Is that an interesting creative challenge? Do we want to start design first? I think that's still, it's not like we have a refined process necessarily for doing that. And I think that's part of the beauty of it. It's this kind of creative hodgepodge of our design team and our, story and marketing team and just all of us combining our ideas into the pot, and really anyone can contribute to this. And that's something that we enjoy as a company, is saying that these ideas can come from anywhere. And sometimes, we'll be going back and forth on Slack on a story and or a letter, and someone will interject something that completely changes the direction of the letter and the story and how it goes. And so it's kind of this really fun, fluid process.
Yeah, and that's why I brought up that point before. That's probably different for each team member, because you might have the designer that had the original concept and they had a name that they thought was stellar, and then someone on the sales team comes up with something that, you know, the rest of the team thought was brilliant. And then so it's kind of, where does that go? And I think sometimes it's what Melissa said. Everyone on the team in any position is encouraged to participate in this.
Well, as you were talking, I pulled up your website, soucclub.com, and I was looking at the socks sitting there, and I saw the Rainier, which immediately caught my attention because I am from the Seattle area. Rainier beer, we, of course, grew up on because it was the cheapest beer us high schoolers could buy. So the name Rainier caught my attention, and I love it. It's red, black, plaid, you know, the lumberjack look. And let me just quickly read the story that you have here. And by the way, it's a truncated story. When you get the socks, you get a much more, 2 to 3 paragraph story, which I love. This says, the Rainier, our November 2016 sock, is for the bold, the adventurers who push boundaries. It's been seen crouched around campfires in dark pine groves, fording rivers in uncharted lands, and roughing it in the wild. We took all the boldness of this pattern and put it into a compact sock form. When you wear it, remember to be brave in the face of all of life's challenges. So, really a fun way to create an exalted sock, if you will, maybe even a bit tongue-in-cheek. But each of your stories, Melissa, I've noticed, have a little moral to them. It's always like there's always a little bit of truth to what's coming out. And who knew that socks could deliver a moral?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that, for one, that comes out of our team. Like I said before, we're definitely a family. And so we're thinking about life. We're all working together and we're making a product. End of the day, it is a commodity. It's a sock. But we're also kind of elevating that even in our own daily experience at work. I think you have to have that kind of levity with it because we are making socks. But I think it's so much more than that for us personally. So I think that's one piece of that comes through, and just kind of the values that we have as a team. But also something that we really strongly believe in is the power of storytelling and also the power of human truth. And this is kind of a classic advertising, lesson, is how do you attach a human truth to something to sell it? And so I think that there's something that really resonates when you can tap into what is a human truth. And at the end of the day, we're all human beings living this experience, and it is a pair of socks. But how can we say something that matters, say something meaningful in the process of delivering this package, and maybe encourage someone to take a next step in their journey, or to be bold, or to be courageous. And maybe every time they put that pair of socks on, they think, oh, I'm going to be courageous today. And it sounds kind of cheesy, but, I see these things that come through. We get emails, we get social media posts from people who literally quote our letters, and they're like, yeah. And it's like, we wrote this letter, and now this person is taking this on as a personal mantra for the month. And so I think that's when it starts to get really powerful, is when you can play to that human truth, not for the sake of just selling, but because it's coming from a genuine desire to connect with other people, and to really build community around the socks. And I think that's when it starts to go from commodity to commotion. It becomes this elevated experience. It's not just a pair of socks. It's actually a message that we can all resonate with together, and then share in that community that comes out of building.
It's so much fun. And I got to tell you, you guys make it look pretty effortless in that it doesn't come off cheesy. It just comes off fun, and it makes you think for a second. I'm actually wearing my Amelia's today. So it says here, I am defying the odds and overcoming great obstacles. So,
well, here we are.
And I think this comes out of one of the most important things that I view for the companies is the culture. And you were saying how it becomes effortless, and how do those stories come from truth? When I look at that sock, and again, I always come from the operational side, but the foundation of our product, I know it is a commodity product, and I get passionate about this, but I don't view it as a commodity product. When I look at any one of these designs, or I look even at the product itself, we strive to be the best at what we do. And the product we create, we strive to be the best at it. And we only use the best materials, the newest machinery, and every person on our supply chain makes a living wage. And it's something that we're eternally proud of, is that process from storytelling to design to the product itself. And so when I look at that Rainier, that was actually a production challenge that we overcame. We said we wanted to put a plaid on a sock, and it's really hard for a stitch-by-stitch machine to do. And so we actually sat on that design. So when we got to unleash that letter, there was all sorts of emotion and overcome that the design team and the production team had in it. And I think that comes true into the story itself. And so, you know, a commoditized product is I think changing from being a commodity. You know, you were talking about Rainier beer. I think a lot of what we're doing is similar to what's happening into the craft beer market, you know, where people are interested in what beer they're drinking. They want to know the story behind that beer. They want to know that the guy down the street made it or what was different about it. And it's the same thing with socks. The technology and the ability to create these designs and do this story is, I don't think, much different. And so I think that was how I would answer that question about where that comes from.
Well, Noah, I want to take a break for our sponsor stories at the moment. But when we come back, and since you are a numbers guy, I'd like to talk to you about the ROI of story and what you've seen, where you literally started off selling socks, and now it sounds like you're selling stories with socks attached to it. And I know it's a little bit deeper than that, but let's talk about the ROI of story right after these messages. We all live vicariously through the protagonists in the stories we love. That's why story marketing masters create characters and place them in scenes that their audiences can totally relate to. Now, here's the spoiler alert. The brand, your brand, is not the hero of the journey. Your customer is. The brand plays a vastly more important role in the story as the customer's mentor or guide. So I think Bud Light did a beautiful job of putting their customer right at the center of the story in their TV spot from the Super Bowl called Between Friends. I mean, I just love this spot. It was a best man toasting his buddy at his wedding, and the spot takes us through 26 rapid-fire vignettes that show us their friendship, what they both have been through. Now, I love this spot because I chuckled at many of the tiny stories throughout the montage because I could relate to them. I was that guy. The commercial creators allowed me to complete each story niblet in my mind as I connected many of their micro events to my own buddy milestones in my own life. You see, the brilliance behind this example of story marketing is that it triggers your own stories, connecting your experiences with the brand. And isn't that really what you want to do with your brand? Connect your customer's experience to you. Now, I'm not a big Bud Light drinker. I actually prefer Coors Light, but they definitely connected with me through this fun spot. And for that, I give them my Story Marketer of the Week salute. You can see the spot and learn the 7 habits of the highly effective story marketer on businessofstory.com. I wrote an entire post about it. Just search 7 habits of the highly effective story marketer or click on the link in today's show notes. People come to me and say, Park, we've got a great business model. We're making money and we're growing fast, but we don't have our brand story straight. And then I ask them what their biggest pain points are, and they tell me, well, our growth is requiring us to add a lot of new people, and now we don't have everyone pulling in the same direction. Plus, other companies have taken notice of our success, and we don't have a brand story that differentiates us from them. You know, they also tell me that when their bankers or potential investors show up and ask them about their brand story, they don't have a clear narrative to share with them. In fact, that's often the most embarrassing part of not having their brand story straight. So if this sounds like you can start getting your story straight right now by downloading your own Business of Story how-to guide. I take you through the 10 proven steps of the story cycle system, complete with short explainer videos, so I'm there with you every step of the way. This guide will help you define the fundamentals of your authentic story. It'll help you clarify your number one position in your market to differentiate you from your competition, declare your unique value proposition, map your customer journey, and define your brand purpose, among other things. The story cycle system has helped companies like yours grow by as much as 400%. So put the Business of Story workbook to work for you and create epic growth for your enterprise and your people by crafting a story they can all live into and prosper from. Story on. Welcome back to Business of Story, and our guest today, the co-founder of the Sauk Club, Noah Lee, with his head of marketing and story marketer, Melissa Huisman. It's so great to have you guys here with guys and gal on the show. Let's talk about the ROI of story. You probably are familiar with that program. What is it called? The Significant Objects Project, where these guys got a whole ton of objects and they paid about $127 for all these knickknacks, and then they attached fictional stories to them, sold them on eBay, and were able to generate, $3,000 for it. So they demonstrated roughly a 30% ROI on story. Noah, you're a numbers guy. You come from that world. What did this surprise you, and what have you seen is the ROI and the stories that you are using to build Sauk Club?
Melissa's laughing because I always come back to numbers. I think the ROI is, that's really hard to calculate precisely, and that's something that Melissa pushes back on a lot. But I think it can come into the way we think about a customer, and this is probably something that's into the subscription model. But socks are thought of as a commodity or an accessory. If you go to a store, generally they're somewhere in a corner, or they're on a wall, or they're thought of as a piece that someone buys or grabs on their way to do something else. Very rarely someone would go and say, I'm going to this place to buy socks themselves. And so when we get a member and a customer to come to our site and purchase socks for themselves, that's the ROI for the story. When you get someone to purchase a 12-month subscription, you've all of a sudden taken this accessory or this commodity and you've turned it into its own experience and product. And so we know that on average, the average person is around for about 10 months. So you've taken a commodity product or maybe a one-off buy and you've turned it into a customer having a great experience, but also purchasing 10 pairs of socks. And so I would calculate the ROI by being that you're getting them to stay with you for a long time. You create a lifetime value, and it's just a little bit different than the way socks have been sold in the past. I think another way to calculate ROI is to think about the community you're building. One of the most important things for our brand is to stand for something, to stand for quality socks, to stand for those morals that Melissa was talking about. And so when you think about socks or a gift for somebody, we come to mind as the place to deliver that. And so if you can get that average person to buy the subscription, we also have this community that anytime they think about socks, they come to our store. And so it's the subscription, the store, and the newest side of the business we've been working on is for custom socks. So we make fully branded socks for companies all over the world. And so when I pulled the numbers for the store a little while ago, and we have a couple of people from the store who've ordered over their lifetime between $500 and $600 worth of socks, and we've only been around a couple of years. And so when I think about ROI, it's in that value that those customers bring.
But when you got into the business back in 2012, it was about selling socks. When did you realize that story was going to have a big impact in the success and sustainability of your company?
I think it took about a year and a half for us to really grasp that. But probably about a year and a half in.
And did you see a significant change in the numbers once you started incorporating story? I mean, did you go from 30 subscribers and all of a sudden had an uptick, or was it gradual?
It has been a pretty gradual, healthy uptick. We started with the letters from the very beginning. I think we just didn't realize the importance of those letters till about a year and a half in. And so we were already doing something, and we just happened to make the right decision on accident.
Gotcha. And Melissa, how are you now that you've been there for a year and a half and this is your bailiwick? You are the story marketer there. What else are you doing? Are you changing approaches or infusing even more story into what you're selling?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is definitely a hot topic here at Sauk Club these days. Something that we've been looking at the past couple of months is how we can think more intentionally about that chicken and egg concept that we were talking about earlier in the show. So which comes first? Do we start design first? Do we start story first? Is there some combination of that? And so I think we're taking a look at kind of the big picture of how we even do the concept of socks and story together and then how that process happens. So I think that's one thing that we're still looking at and developing. The other is kind of infusing more intentionality month to month and looking at the grander story that we're telling. And so this hints at the lessons and the morals that you mentioned earlier, some of those human truths. And so we were kind of giggling because we found that a few months in a row in the warmer months, we found ourselves talking about the outdoors a lot because Austin, Texas is a beautiful place. We all like to get outdoors. When it's nice here, it's really nice here. And so as we reflected back, we thought, oh, wow, okay, we've done a couple in a row or a couple in a few month span that really talk about adventuring and going outdoors and those things. And it wasn't so much because we just really, really love the outdoors. It was just because we hadn't looked at the overarching story arc that was happening. So that's something that I'm really challenging us on now is looking at the big picture and even forecasting out, okay, what's the big story we want to tell in 2017? And how can we bring that to the surface a little bit every single month? And how can we elevate the experience of the whole subscription? So not just every single month, every single month needs to be great. And every single month we hope to inspire and bring a story to the surface, but also over the course of an entire customer experience, how can we elevate that whole thing? And how can that whole thing feel really cohesive, on brand, but still be relatable, connectable, all of the things that story accomplishes.
Absolutely. Well, as we close down, I have two questions for both of you. So first for you, Noah, what would you tell a listener? And I work with a lot of professional services firms, a lot of B2B guys, and guys in particular. I will say guys because they're the ones that are so reluctant for story. You come from, again, the numbers world, and you are a numbers guy, but you have bought into and you've seen the power of story in creating, moving this commodity into commotion for Sauk Club. What would you tell listeners out there about how to open up to the potentiality of using story and story marketing in your business to actually elevate that brand so much more than just features and functions do?
Sure. I mean, I don't think I could have worded that better myself. I remember sitting in business school and with a lot of classmates, and we would go through all the concepts and the numbers. And sometimes the question would come up, like, I need an answer on how this functions or why this needs to be. And sometimes numbers don't add up and you have to follow some instincts and you have to look into the power of the long term. And what's been really powerful for me in a learning experience has been watching the subscription grow and watching the power of the story and the experience launch a company. And at the same time, taking those core concepts and the belief that design and quality can transfer into a B2B business. Our B2B business today is actually larger than the subscription itself. And we deal with companies all the time trying to tell a story. When they want to go to CES or they want to go to Dreamforce or they want to go to whatever trade show, they're trying to make an impact on the end user. And so an end user, you have to think about what's gonna influence them or how are they going to walk away and think about my brand? And I mean, it's no different than our brand and the storytelling we're doing, but it's their brand. And we do that through creating a well-crafted, designed sock. I can't make them put a story to it, but I think it's absolutely necessary for your brand in today's world to be unique. And you have to have something that is the story to tell it. I mean, when you go to the store today, think about the chips you buy. If I go to the store in Austin, Texas, they don't carry Lay's. They carry the story about the guy whose grandfather made the chips in Vermont, and he's been doing it for 100 years. And when I think about the biggest clients that we serve, the socks that have done the best for them carry this story because they're part of their brand. It's like this piece. And so people are interested in that. And so I feel like I'm starting to go in circles, but B2B is really, really hard. It is, you're dealing with numbers people all the time. You're dealing with very competitive spaces. And the most important thing is that you are either competing on price or commodity, or you have this story. And so when you think of how do I break in from one business person to another, you have to stand for something. And I think that story helps bring that to life. It helps that positioning statement say, what does this company stand for?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Melissa, from the story side, what 1 or 2 or 3 tips can you offer up about approaching a brand with a story, and what do you look for? What would ignite that storyteller in our listeners?
Absolutely. I think there are a couple of things. Tips, I would say, ask yourself, how can we infuse story? And even I love what Noah was saying about B2B. It is a tough market, but I think it's ripe for disruption in this way. And I think, if we're being honest, a lot of times B2B is pretty boring. It's kind of makes me feel like the 90s, and it's it's just boring. And so I think there are a lot of opportunities even for B2B to infuse story and to kind of how to go about that. I think you have to be genuine about it. I think you have to approach it and be true to your brand and be true to your company and even be true to kind of the culture that you have at your team and let that come through. And so something I think a lot about is how can we pull back the curtain? How can we let people see kind of behind the scenes who we really are? Because again, it comes back to that human truth piece. Who are the humans running this company? Yeah, sure, it's a cool brand. It's cool socks, whatever, or it's a cool software company. They've got a sharp product, whatever, but I want to know how that came to be. I'm curious about that. And I think that innate curiosity that we have as human beings, it doesn't stop just because we're working in the business world. It doesn't stop just because we're dealing with software or we're dealing with tech startups or whatever. I think that there's always going to be that human curiosity piece that's really important. And so I would encourage listeners to think about, how can we tell a story here? Let's not try to force it. Let's not try to just make something up, but what is the story that's already here? And then how can we tell that? How can we infuse that into what we're doing? What are small ways, even if it's just something as simple as once a week putting up a social media post that tells a small narrative bit about behind the scenes at your company? I think that's a really easy way to start. What's something that you did this week that might be unique to your culture? We have things that we do here at Sauk Club internally that seem really normal to us, but we talk to our friends working in other companies in Austin or working in other B2B sectors, and it's like, oh, that's such a unique thing that we do. One small example is we just wrapped up working out of a house on the east side of Austin for about 4 years. And, it was so funny because people didn't realize, oh, Sauk Club is headquartered out of a house in East Austin. And that was a huge part of our culture and a huge part of our story. And I think as we told that story to the world and as we revealed pieces of that, it was so compelling. It was so interesting. And so I think other brand professionals and even just other business people, there are stories that are already in your company. There are stories that already exist in your product, in your development process, in all of the pieces of your brand. I think it's just bringing those to the surface and asking yourselves, where are those stories already? How can we bring them out?
I couldn't agree with you more. So final question for both of you. What is your favorite pair of socks at Sauk Club?
Oh, man, this is a tough one.
There must be one that pops out that says, yeah, I really like those.
I think my favorite pair isn't even on the store anymore. It was called the Diamond Stripe, and it was the first pair we ever made, but that's because it means something to me.
Oh, yeah.
I think of the modern styles that we have up there, definitely the Kepler is one of my favorites. That was January of last year, and I really thought it came out well.
Right on. Melissa, how about you?
This is a tough question, but I'm going to take a less emotional approach and just a more style approach. I really like to put together outfits, and I think my favorite pair that I've worn is the Sergio, and this was in October, I think it was October of 2016, just this past fall, and I actually really like the hibiscus colorway. And so for each pair of socks that we do some alternative colorways, and we put those in our store. So they're not necessarily the ones that we ship out in our subscription, but then we have these other versions. And I really like that because I like the colorway. So less emotional tie there, but it's my favorite pair of socks. And whenever it comes through in the laundry, I get very excited to put them on.
All right. So the next time I'm in Austin, I'm going to come over and visit you. And Noah, I'll be really disappointed if I don't see a pair of the diamond stripes taped to the wall behind your desk. Like, you do with it when you open up a restaurant and you tape that dollar bill above the cash register. So you've got to track down a pair of the diamond stripes.
Don't worry, I have quite a few.
Hey, thanks so much for being on the show. Noah and Melissa, really great. I've just have been enjoying your company so much over the past couple months, and I appreciate you coming on Business of Story.
Thanks so much, Park.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. And for the rest of you, if you want to check it out, go hit sought.club.com. It's really fun. The beautiful designs, the quality of the sock is terrific, and I love, of course, the story and the story marketing behind it. And thank you for listening to another edition of Business of Story. Certainly visit me over at businessofstory.com to help you get your brand story straight. And as Melissa said earlier, to help you find the stories that reside within your company and your products and your services so that you can create stories like Sauk Club has that allows everybody to live into and prosper from that story. So thanks for listening, and join me again next Monday when we will have another story artist on to help you craft and tell compelling brand stories that sell. And until then, have a wonderful life.